Question. Have you ever not received a grade for an assignment or for a course that you actually believe you were entitled to? Now, I'm not asking here whether or not you've ever had the experience of getting to the end of a course or submitting an assignment and based on your effort and hard work, believe that you're going to get a grade that's different than the one you got. I'm asking more along these lines. Imagine you get to the end of our course and we've got this grading system that says, hey, as long as you score 80% or higher in each of the 3 assignment categories, thought, primers, quizzes, and ethical inquiries, you're going to get an A in the course. Okay, so imagine you get to the end of the semester, you look at Canvas, sure enough, you're above 80% in all 3 assignment categories, but when you go to WebAdvisor, you can see that I've entered not a grade of A for you, but a grade of B. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get in contact with me, and you're going to say, hey, I think you made a mistake. You entered a grade of B for me, but I was above 80% in all 3 of those assignment categories, so I should have gotten an A. Can you fix this for me? And I say to you something like this. Yeah, I just don't think an A is warranted. I'm thinking about some of the things you said and how much I think you've learned and just not quite feeling the A. Well, that's not going to fly with you, is it? The first thing you're going to do is say, okay, fine, I'm going to file a grade appeal. And in my grade appeal, I'm going to put a copy of your syllabus, and I'm going to put a screenshot of my Canvas page that shows I was above 80% in all 3 assignment categories, and I'm going to submit that to the college. And I'm going to tell them, he's denying me something that I'm entitled to. And that grade appeal committee is going to look at your appeal, and then they're going to look at me, and they're going to say, you made a mistake here. Why didn't you give the student the A when he or she has clearly met the terms to receive one? And imagine I say something like, yeah, changed my mind, didn't think the student was really A worthy, didn't think an A was warranted. They're going to look at me and they're going to be like, we don't care what you think. What we care about is that you established in your syllabus that 80% or higher in each of the 3 assignment categories equals an A. You need to give the student an A. And if you don't change the grade, we're going to do it for you because the student's entitled to an A based on what's laid out in your syllabus. Okay, so one of the things we're going to talk about this week are entitlements. And we want to make clear that as we're considering entitlements, that we don't confuse this word with another way that we oftentimes use it. Sometimes we use it to describe people. And we'll say, oh my gosh, that person is so entitled. And what we're really saying is something kind of pejorative about the person. We're saying oh my gosh, that person is so full of themselves. They think they're special and warrant special treatment. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about entitlement. Instead, what we're talking about are rights that are established by law or contract, like a syllabus is a kind of contract, okay? So rights that are established by laws or contracts are entitlements. These are things that you have a legitimate claim to, and if somebody denies you your entitlement, they could be wronging you and held to account for that. So maybe think about some of the things that you're entitled to. And an easy one right off the bat is your right to vote. If you're a U.S. citizen, over 18, registered to vote, you have a right to vote in the next presidential election. You're entitled to do that. And if somebody tries to prevent you from exercising that right, they could be held accountable for doing that because you're entitled to that vote. Similarly, you're entitled to a trial by a jury of your peers if you're accused of a crime. And if somebody tries to deny you that right, as you attempt to exercise it, they could be held to account because the U.S. Constitution establishes that right for you. Now, as we have this conversation about entitlements, one of the unique features that we're going to want to keep in mind is that entitlements create or establish legal obligations for others. Okay, so if you have a right, you have an entitlement, that means that somebody else has an obligation. By the course syllabus, you are entitled to an A if you meet the criteria, which means I'm obligated to give you that A. If you are registered to vote and meet all the other criteria, somebody has to provide you with a ballot or a polling place. Okay, now I'm making this point because in our culture, we talk about rights and entitlement really loosely, and that can make things confusing. So, for example, we'll say things like healthcare is a basic human right, or everybody's entitled to housing, or a universal basic income is a right. And that's not always accurate. Yes, if you live in a particular town like Compton, California, or Stockton, California, where they have established a universal basic income program for people who meet the criteria, then yes, if you're a resident of that particular city and meet the criteria, then maybe yes, you do have that right. But just to give a sweeping claim like housing is a basic human right, it's not accurate. Okay. And it's not accurate because we have not created an obligation on others to provide everybody with housing. Okay. So when we say something like healthcare is a basic human right, maybe we mean healthcare should be a basic human right. And when we say that, what we're saying is, I think someone or others should be responsible for creating healthcare for anyone who needs it. When we say housing should be a basic right, what we're saying is, I believe that someone or some group of people should be financially responsible for providing this housing to everyone. Simply saying something is a right doesn't make it a right, because it doesn't necessarily, saying that something is a right doesn't entail that others are obligated to provide that right in the same way that they are when those rights are actually established by law or by contract.